This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog with another weekly baseball observation. The Nationals continue to bat Adam Eaton second, even though that's not the best value for him. The most value to him is his leading off capability. And then the Royals taking their best player, Whit Merrifield, who's a second baseman, and playing him in all over the outfield and even at first base. Sometimes he's batting leadoff, sometimes he's batting second, sometimes batting third. He's your best player. You're going to destroy his value if you want to trade him, or he's just going to be tired out by having to play all over the place and not being in a consistent spot. The Brewers, now that Hernan Perez is gone, Saladino's taken his spot as the utility guy because their team is full of a lot of corner infielders and outfielders, so there's not a lot of versatility. So Hernan Perez played everywhere and even pitched. Saladino's now playing the outfield, and he's not there to play the outfield. He's there to play backup infield for Arcia, Arshar, and Moustakas because they're not all going to win a Gold Glove. At the same time, they're batting Yasmani Grandal leadoff when Lorenzo Cain has been a successful leadoff hitter for them these past couple of seasons. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then the Brewers... So that's what's with the Brewers. And the Blue Jays, playing Eric Sogard in the outfield. It's one thing if Randall Grichuk's playing center and you're playing Brandon Drury in a corner spot and you occasionally, and now your new move is you're going to play Gurriel in the outfield even though he's an infielder by trade. Those somewhat make some sense. But playing Eric Sogard, a utility infielder, in the outfield when he doesn't have any value over there is silly. And the Orioles seem like they just want to upset people. Let's bat our best player second, and let's bat Trey Mancini, who is our best player, in right field when he's not even an outfielder, and then Santana, who is a good right fielder, there are games he's playing center field. Then the Yankees are batting Judge second when he should be batting in the middle of the lineup, and they're batting DJ LeMahieu leadoff and playing him at first base and third base. His value, DJ LeMahieu, is when he won a batting title as the number 2 hitter. He hits for a high average. He gets on base. He also won a Gold Glove at second base, so I don't understand why he's playing first and third. Then you got the Phillies who are playing Sean Kingery in center field and leading him off because they don't want to play Roman Quinn, the only qualified guy to play center field, because Odubel Herrera is suspended for the year, and Andrew McCutchen's out for the rest of the year. And instead of trying Gene Segura in the leadoff spot where he's had some success, let's have Kingery do both things. And then the Braves, with Ender Inciarte still out for the past couple of months, Acuna's done both, leading off and playing center field. Acuna is a massively talented player. He has got the speed to play the outfield. He's got the arm. But he hits the ball like a right fielder. He's a slugger. He's not a center fielder. It's not saying he can't play center field. It's just you have a multiple-time Gold Glove winner who can actually play center field. So when he comes back, there's going to be a problem because Austin Riley has been playing great as a left fielder, but he's a third baseman by training of Josh Donaldson. So you have to figure out some sort of system when they come back. And the Marlins are all over the place. I don't know if it's management saying we want to lose every game, so sorry, Don Mattingly, you can't play your best player. You got to play Yadier Rivera, a journeyman minor league infielder, and Rojas, a career backup infielder every day at shortstop or third base or second base, instead of playing Brian Anderson and JT Riddle in the left side of the infield where it's proven that it could be a good thing. And then they have to play Anderson or Riddle in the outfield, which is pretty stupid. And then I see Cooper in the outfield. Again, you have enough outfielders that you got in trades and you developed that are on your 40-man roster that they should be playing instead of playing your infielders in the outfield. And then the Angels, Mike Trout is batting second, and Simmons is batting cleanup some days. It's good that Justin Simmons is back and Justin Upton's back, but there's no need to bat Trout second and Simmons cleanup if your lineup is just not that great when you get to the bottom 4 of the lineup. And then the Angels like to have Trevor Cale come out of the bullpen. You're paying this money to start. You don't have enough pitching. Might as well start him. And the Twins, they need to play Sano every day possible at first base or DH. If C.J. Cron is injured, there's no need to play a utility player at DH or play utility player at first base. Sano doesn't have the value of first base. Marwin Gonzalez has the value of third base. And then that utility player in Marwin Gonzalez, who's playing a bunch of the right field and left field and that Ayers prospect, they should not be in the outfield. If Byron Buxton and Max Kepler are healthy, they should be playing in the outfield, and you should have J.K. play the outfield. I understand playing infields in outfield. The only issue the Rockies are is David Dahl playing center field when Ryan Tapia is more qualified. The A's with Piscotty injured are playing Mark Cannon and Chad Pinder. This is just not a great outfield. Then the Giants are having Brandon Belt lead off and play left field when he's a middle-of-the-order guy and he's your first baseman. He's not your left fielder. No offense to Tyler Austin. He's a backup. No offense to Pablo Sandoval. He's a backup. There's no need. And then the Rangers, Joey Gallo. You have Delonte Shields Jr., Willie Calhoun, Shin-Soo Choo, Nomar Mazara, and Danny Santana. You got enough guys who can pass the center field instead of playing Joey Gallo in center field because he had an embarrassing time this weekend playing center field, missing the ball, having one of the worst throws we've ever seen in baseball. so he does not belong in the outfield, especially not center field. And then the Indians, Jake Bauers should not be in the outfield, and Lindor should not be batting leadoff. Jake Bauers, you got him because you wanted a slugging first baseman DH, and you didn't want Yanni Diaz. And Lindor's value batting leadoff is silly when a lot of the lineup is a bunch of easy outs. If Lindor's moved down a bit, you move things around, it'll be a lot better lineup. And then the Tigers batting Nicky Castellanos second. There was a good period of time where he was batting third or fourth. I don't know why they changed their mind and put him second. And with Tim Anderson there, the White Sox are playing Moncada second when he should be batting third or fifth. Then the Cubs continue to bat Schwarber leadoff and Bryant second, which again is silly, but the Cubs don't have a great leadoff hitter. And apparently they want to also piss off Bryant by batting him in spots in the lineup he's not comfortable in, and also play him the outfield. Even though Carlos Gonzalez is gone, there's no need to play Chris Bryant in right field and Jason Hayward in center field. There is no reason. The Dodgers, on the other hand, they have a Gold Glove caliber center fielder Jock Peterson, and they have Alex Verdugo and Bellinger. That's a good enough outfield. There's no need to play Jock Peterson at first base if you have Muncy and you have Beatty and you have Rios. You got all these guys who could play first base. Don't need to play Jock Peterson at first base and then play Beatty in left field when he's a first baseman, or to play Bellinger in center field or in the corner spots if you have Jock Peterson. And you can also play Bellinger at first base, and Max Muncy's playing a lot of second base. Well, Max Muncy, the only reason why Bellinger's not in first base is to get Max Muncy's bat in the lineup at first base by playing Bellinger in the outfield. Now, the Reds continue to play Jose Peraza in the outfield because Scooter Gennett is back. And then even with Scooter Gennett back, they go back to, let's have Kyle Farmer play some second base. He's your backup catcher. There's no need to play him at second base. And the Rays, they got d'Arnaud because they were down to like their last, it was their fourth or fifth string catcher. But now he's playing first base when they should play Nate Lau, the prospect, every day at first base. There's no need. And batting him leadoff is silly. And then the Astros, Jordan Alvarez, prospect. If you want him in the lineup, you play him at first base or you play him at DH. There's no need to play Tyler White every day. And there's no need to throw him in the outfield. There's no point. He's not an outfielder. And then the Mariners continue to use openers every couple of days when they have enough starting pitchers. Now, because there's only 3 games played this weekend, this is all going to be at the All-Star game. Now, George Springer, he missed a good amount of time this year. I don't believe he should have been a starter or even made the All-Star team, because if you miss a bunch of time, you shouldn't play. DJ LeMahieu deserves it at second base because he's having the best season as second baseman. Mike Trout, he's just super consistent, so of course he's going to make it. But I don't agree with Carlos Santana as an all-star this year, nor do I agree with him, being the starting first baseman. The best first basemen this year have been Jose Abreu and C.J. Cron, and those guys are in his own division. And at the same time, Luke Voit, obviously, he's injured, so it was no guarantee that someone like Luke Voit and C.J. Cron would be on the all-star team if they're both, injured. But the two of them were having a better season than Carlos Santana to begin with. So that's the thing. When C.J. Cron and Luke Voit are having better seasons than Carlos Santana, then the two of them should be on the roster. But Abreu, or even if Luke Voit was starting or Cron was starting, it wouldn't be such an issue, because the only other first baseman that is having anywhere of an all-star caliber year is just based on his production is Trey Mancini, the best player on the Orioles. But he didn't even make the all-star team. They gave it to an unknown pitcher that we'll get to later that made the all-star team instead of him. And Brandon Lau of the Rays made the all-star team, but he's a second baseman who happened to play a bunch of first base and a bunch of other spots this year as well. And the Blue Jays first basemen have been a committee of who's been playing first base as well. And the Red Sox first basemen all have been injured. And the Rangers, if Joey Gallo was playing every day at first base, he'd probably be the number one guy at first base for the Rangers. And the A's, Matt Olson started the year in the DL and is having an okay season so far, but that's why he's not qualified. And the Astros, Gurriel's been good, but he's played a lot of third base and middle infield this year, so he's because of all the injuries. And then Daniel Vogelbach made the All-Star team because Seattle has to have an All-Star because the best player on their team, Mitch Haniger, is injured, and they traded away the two veterans in Bruce and Edwin Encarnacion, so they had to have an All-Star at first base. Now, JD Martinez, it's only Hunter Pence having a better year as a DH, but again, if Joe Gallo was DHing or playing first base like he should be, he would be the clear favorite. JD Martinez is obviously the clear favorite because he's the only guy having a great productive season every day at a DH spot. A lot of teams' DHs have been, in a committee. Nelson Cruz missed time this year, so that is why he is not the starting DH. Miguel Cabrera is not having an all-star season, and the Yankees' DH starting this year, Mike Stanton, has been injured, and they had a rotating door at DH. They had Kendrick Morales. They are using Edwin Encarnacion at DH, so that's why JD Martinez becomes the obvious answer at DH is the best one in the American League, and that's why he's starting. Hunter Pence deserved to make the All-Star team, but he's not really a DH at this point. And the ace, Chris Davis, is injured. He's used suspect. Albert Pujols is playing for more first base instead of DH because Otani's the DH, but Otani missed time to start the season. So JD Martinez makes sense. Alex Bregman, he's having a good year. He's one of the best in the league, but it's more of his reputation and the Astros stuff in the ballot. Why he won the nominees also. Players like Yohan Moncada and Hunter Dozier were having great seasons to begin with. So you would think that, the White Sox and Royals are having themselves third basemen who are having all-star caliber seasons. Why don't they get voted in as well instead of, Bregman and Matt Chapman based on reputation, And Rafael Devers is having a great year as well. But the only third basemen on the roster are Chapman and Trevor and Alex Bregman, which means that, again, what is going on here? You don't have Hunter Dozier, and you don't have Yohan Moncada, and you don't have Rafael Devers. All three of them are having great seasons. That's why you're a little bit questionable on that to begin with. And Tommy LaStella, who has played second base and third base this year for the Angels, made the All-Star team, and he got hurt. But that's just files under second base. LeMay deserves to start. LaStella is just another good story, and he's a backup. He would be the backup, but he's injured, and Lau got hurt, so he's injured. But then you're looking at, the third base in the American League. If it's not Dozier and it's not Yohan Moncada, and it's not Alex Bregman because he's a good player and he's having a great season like he always does, and Chapman based on reputation, there aren't really that many options in Major League Baseball in the American League at third base outside of Dozier and Moncada. That's why I'm confused about that. The rest of the American League is that Moncada, Dozier, and Devers are having better seasons than Bregman and Chapman to begin with, but that's a good top five, but not all five are going to make it as well. And also Alex Bregman, he played a lot of games this year as shortstop with Correa injured, and games even as second base with Altuve injured. So you're just he hasn't played third base the whole entire season and stuff. But yeah, and then a catcher, Gary Sanchez, makes it because he's clearly playing for the Yankees and he's great offensively. And with Salvador Perez out for the rest of this season, for the whole entire season, then the only real catching option is McCann, and he, of course, made it as a backup. But explain to me how the American League can only have two backup catchers, and if Sanchez plays the typical 4 to 5 innings of a starter, and then McCann finishes up the 6th inning through the 9th inning, but then it goes extra innings, because maybe Sanchez would be taken out of the game early. So that's, again, there's not a third catcher. Jonathan Lucroy is not having an all-star season, but he's a former all-star. If Robinson Chirinos made it, it would have been nice just to have 3 catchers, because right now the A's and the Mariners and the Rangers are all playing backups, and even Chirinos is a backup has been a backup in his career. And the Red Sox don't have great catching that would be all-star caliber, nor do the Rays, the Orioles, or the Blue Jays. So that leaving you with just Gary Sanchez, James McCann, and Robinson Chirinos, and Jonathan Lucroy, that's not a great American League catching tandems that they have. And then the Twins, the Tigers, and the Indians, and the current Royals starting catcher, Martin Maldonado, they're not all all-stars. So I'm surprised that Chirinos is the only guy sticking out, or Lucroy as a name didn't make it. Now, Michael Brantley, he's a great offensive player. I'll give it to him. He's in left field. But he's probably not having the best season offensively as a left fielder. But based on reputation, he gets in Polanco. He's having a great year offensively, but Tim Anderson's having a great year. Mundasai on the Royals is having a great year. So there are 2 other guys in his own division having great season, and so is Gleyber Torres. Now, Gleyber Torres did make it as a backup, but a lot of people were saying, how come you didn't pick Moncada, Tim Anderson, or the 2 guys in the Royals when you're picking backups on the team? That's where people are getting at there, is that there are other guys that deserved it over him, but at least he's having such a good enough season that it's not a big deal. And I thought, okay, Lucas Giolito deserves to start it, but they gave it to Justin Verlander, which is fine. Now, when it comes to National League, Yelich is having a great season, so of course he deserves it. Baez, there's a lot of good shortstops in the National League, and in his own division, he's got competition in general. Like Arcia and Iglesias, they're pretty good, I would rule out the Pirates and the Brewers. So it's the Brewers and the Reds who have some competition, but not the Pirates. Now, Paul DeJong, has made it as an All-Star this year, which surprised me because I didn't think he was having such an amazing season. And, of course, Paul DeYoung is listed on MLB.com as third baseman, but he's a shortstop, so I'll give him that. So biased out of all the ones that are left in his own division, yes. But the Phillies have Gene Segura, and the Braves Swanson was having a good season, and the Nationals have Trey Turner, but yeah, Trey Turner missed time, and then you have the Rockies Trevor Story. He made it, but he's been battling some injuries, and at the same time, Brandon Crawford's just sturdy there at shortstop, so that's okay. And then when it comes to Freddie Freeman, there's a debate that Josh Bell and Pete Alonso were having great seasons, but at least Josh Bell gets to start at DH and Pete Alonso gets to come off the bench, so everybody would be happy there. But at least the first baseman's in the National League, there's a lot of them. Max Muncy made it as injury replacement. He's having a good year, so that's fine by me. Now, Bellinger made as a right fielder, and I keep telling you he's not a right fielder, but I'll take it because how many great right fielders are there in the National League? The Pirates have one of them, but he's injured, and Kristen Yelich has been playing right field, but when they did the All-Star voting, he's in left field. So then you got Hayward, who's good defensively, but that's pretty much it. And then Bryce Harper's not having a good season. Mike Markakis is just sturdy. The Braves' Conforto's been okay, but he hasn't been great. And the Nationals' Adam Eaton's been okay. And then you got the Rockies' Charlie Blackmon, who is having a great season as well, because he always have, and now he's in right field, but he made it, so that's the thing. And then they also gave it to David Dahl as well, so 2 Rockies got it. And then the outfield, what surprised me is Jeff McNeil is an infielder to begin with, so the fact that, he made it is interesting that they both made it in the outfield as well, and Jeff McNeil made it as an outfielder. Now, the catching position, Contreras is having a good offensive season, and Molina and Posey are just being themselves. But I feel like Yasmani Grandal is having a great season too, and so does JT Realmuto. So they both made it, but there could have been a case for who one of them starts. So at least right now, those guys are having the best seasons in catcher. So you can roll Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and the Cardinals are not having. Molina's been injured, so he's not having the best season, and then Brewers and Cubs were picked. The Mets and the Nationals and the Marlins are not so much. But, the argument could have made for Brian McCann. It's just not the Dodgers or the Rockies or the Diamondbacks or the Padres. Austin Hedges could have had a case at that as that representative, but they gave it to Kirby Yates. And then you got Buster Posey instead. And then Ketel Marte, he has played a lot of center field, so I wouldn't say, oh my God, he's the best second baseman. But when it comes, and then Mike Moustakas made it as a second baseman, even though he's not really a second baseman. That Ketel Marte is obviously a better choice there. But Jeff McNeil probably will see some time at second base in the All-Star game. But Anthony Rendon, who was named to the All-Star team, he's injured at third base. That the Cubs this season and the Cardinals this season and the Reds and the Pirates and the Brewers, outside of Moustakas playing out of position, not that much great competition. And then the Mets, Cano's not having a great season. The Phillies just have an okay guy. The Braves, Ozzie Albies could have made a case to bring in the All-Star team. And then the Marlins, and then you could take out the Nationals, Brian Dozier, maybe. The Dodgers, Max Muncy, has played a lot of second base, and he's on the team, so that's fine. And the Giants and the Padres and the Rockies don't have anybody, but it makes sense that Ketel Marte made it. And then Acuna, the fact that Ronald Acuna is the All-Star Game starting center fielder when he only started playing center field like a month or so into the season because Energy Arte is injured, that should be an insult to like Lorenzo Cain, and that should be an insult to Lorenzo Cain is one of them. Another one would be that's it. It's just Lorenzo Cain because it seems like all the good center fielders this year are on the DL. That's really what it seems to be. And then Ryu, yeah, he deserves it. He's having a great season pitching-wise, so that I won't take that away from him. But let's go back to the reserves. McCann deserves it, Abreu deserves it. Vogelback, the Mariners needed to have an all-star representative with Mitch Haniger injured and Felix Hernandez injured. And, they didn't pick Crone, and they didn't pick Anybody, they didn't pick other first basemen like C.J. Cron, and Luke Voigt. And then the Yankees got Torres as a replacement. But as I said, there are probably better infielders that were having better years. And Whit Merrifield's considered an outfielder to be a second baseman. Bogarts made it. That's good. He deserves it. Lindor made it based on reputation. But as the best shortstops have been Mundasai, Tim Anderson, and Polanco. So that's why you're like, huh. So Polanco's the only one that's on here, and they all gave it to Lindor based on reputation. When Cleveland Indians, yeah, you need a representative on your team because the rest of your team is not having an all-star caliber season. So the fact that, okay, Carl Santana made a starter, there's no need to also have Lindor and Brad Hand at the same time. Mookie Betts based on reputation, but he's still a good player. But yeah, the Red Sox, in my opinion, if Rafael Devers and Bogarts were the two representatives, and JD Martinez were three representatives, and Mookie Betts didn't made it this year because it was a tough year for outfielders, okay, that's fine. Mookie would live with that. Joey Gallo, the Rangers are not having a great season, but Mike Minor's having a great season. He got voted in. Now, he's not going to pitch in it, and Hunter Pence got voted in. They're not going to play. So it's one thing to be like, okay, fine. The two guys the Rangers had didn't make it, so Joey Gallo can be on the team. Now, the Rays, you could have gone with Tommy Pham, but, they went with Austin Meadows. Now, Lau, it would have been nice to see Lau in the All-Star game, but he is injured. So they have to have somebody. So it's a good thing that Austin Meadows made it with Lau being injured, and also with Charlie Morton, who pitched on Sunday, wouldn't be able to be in the All-Star game. Now, the Royals, as I said, their shortstop and their third baseman and Whit Merrifield, who would be playing second base, all, deserve it. But they at least got Whit Merrifield as their representative. Now, the Brewers, they got Yelich and they got Yasmani Grandal and Moustakas. So they got them three representatives position-wise, so that's fine. The Phillies, they got themselves JT Realmuto because, quite frankly, Gene Segura is one of the best shortstops, but didn't make it into the All-Star game. And Rhys Hoskins is in the battle for best first basemen, and there's a lot of them. And Harper's not having an All-Star season. McCutcheon's out for the year. And Arrieta and Aaron Nola, didn't make the All-Star team. Then you're going to have to pick somebody. So they made sure that it went to Grandal as third catcher. And for the Mets, they got the fact that they got Alonso, DeGrom, and McNeil. That's great for them. And the Dodgers got themselves Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy in terms of the position players that have been voted into the All-Star game and reused the starting pitcher for the All-Star game. They got enough All-Stars, but they're also the best team in their division, so that makes sense. And they also got Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw, two starting pitchers based on also reputation for Clayton Kershaw. So they got enough of Dodgers in the All-Star game. And then the Cubs, as I said, they got Contreras and Baez because there's a couple of guys that are neck and neck for that. But with Anthony Rendon injured, Chris Bryant obviously is the only other third baseman that I would go with except for Nolan Arenado, who's clearly the best. It was just, I think Arenado was having a better season to begin with. But the Cubs could also say, man, Anthony Rizzo deserves to be an all-star. And maybe one of our starting pitchers deserves to be an all-star. But you got Contreras, Baez, and Bryant. That's fine. And the Cardinals, because Marcelo Zuna is injured and also Dexter Fowler is having an all-star season, that they gave Paul DeJong it because there's no Yadi Molina in this. Paul Goldschmidt, because it's a tough first baseman crowd, didn't make it. Matt Carpenter's in a tough third baseman category. And none of those pitchers are wowing us. That they have to put Paul DeJong. Now, the Rockies, on their hand, Arenado's great. Trevor Story's great. So is Charlie Blackmon, but there's no need to have Story and there's no need to have Story, Blackmon, and Dahl if you already have Nolan Arenado. I know he's the token guy to go with, but and Blackmon, right now, the season's probably one of the best right fielders. And David Dahl is having a good season, and Story's one of the good shortstop. You don't need all of them. And I like Jeff McNeil, but he making the other team as an outfielder when there's probably other outfielders that deserve it. If he made it as like a second baseman, because Moustakas is the only other guy listed as second base on this team, that's the thing where I draw the line going, that's really weird. Now, the American League bullpen. Jose Barrios, he replaced his teammate Odorizzi. That's fine. The Twins have Polanco, but you could have suggested that Cron and Nelson Cruz as candidates at first base or DH, or Max Kepler in right field at the same time. Now, the Indians, Shane Beaver made it as a starting pitcher, and so did Brad Hand, because this year the pitching staff of Kluber and Carrasco have been injured, and Bauer's not having such an amazing season to begin with. But at the same time, the Indians if Lindor is their token position player, they need to have Bieber and Hands. But that's what I'm saying. And then the Yankees getting Aroldis Chapman based on reputation when they already have Gary Sanchez and they already have DJ LeMahieu making the All-Star team, and they already have Gleyber Torres making it as a backup. At the same time, they don't need to have all of those all-stars. So Chapman making it when there's probably plenty of relievers that deserve it is a little bit. You don't have to always go with that. And Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander making it when you have Alex Bregman on the all-star team and you have George Springer. Like, look at this for the Astros. You got yourself George Springer in right field. You got Alex Bregman at third base, and you got Michael Brantley in left field. And Verlander starting the game, and you got Garrett Cole. That's a lot of guys from your team making it. And then the White Sox, Giolito, he deserves having a great season. Out of the other Sox pitchers, none of the starting pitchers having good seasons. But Alex Colomé should have been named like a replacement relief pitcher because he's got at least 20 saves, which is where the Tigers were. None of their position players this year, the best one out of them is Nicky Castellanos. None of them are sticking out. Matt Boyd, I probably would have picked Matt Boyd to be in the All-Star game because he's having a great year than picking Shane Green, the reliever, because last year when they didn't pick him, they picked Joe Jimenez. That was weird. Now, Brad Hand, as I just said, man, the Indians have Shane Bieber and Brad Hand and Lindor. They're not having a great season. You don't need to have all three of them. And then Liam Hendricks for the A's. So Matt Chapman makes it as the backup third baseman on the All-Star team when there are a couple other third basemen that, deserve it more than him. Fine, you got yourself one A's player this season because there's no Chris Davis and there's no Stephen Piscotty. And none of their starters are pitching well enough. But yeah, let's take Liam Hendricks, who's a former starting pitcher, lefty specialist, setup man, and spots and opener. Yeah, that's really deserved. And then the Orioles' John Bean is the relief pitcher I mentioned earlier that made it over Trey Mancini. Nobody on the Orioles having a good season, especially their pitching staff. Their pitching staff is giving up like the most home runs. All their starters think their bullpen hasn't been good. So picking up this left-handed pitcher John Bean I've never heard of instead of Mancini is a questionable thing. And then I said the Astros. They already had Garrett Cole and Verlander starting, and then they have Springer, Bregman, and Brantley starting. They added Ryan Presley, another reliever. Then there's plenty of relievers on other teams that you could have picked instead. Like the Blue Jays could have had themselves Ken Giles. You could have done the Astros closer, actually, Roberto Ozuna. There's plenty of teams with like relief pitchers that you could have picked. You could have picked somebody on the Twins bullpen. You could have picked somebody out of the Rangers bullpen. You could have picked somebody out of the Mariners bullpen. You could have done somebody. And then the Yankees, Tanaka only made it because Tanaka's replacing Marcus Stroman, who was the Blue Jays representative right there. That's what I'm saying. Like, Ken Giles could have made it with Marcus Stroman because none of the Blue Jays players, even this amazing Vlad Guerrero Jr. story is happening that the Blue Jays, if Brandon Drury played every day, he may have been a candidate. Justin Smoke's having a down season, so is Randall Grichuk. So it makes sense that they first originally voted Marcus Stroman, but Marcus Stroman is not going to play. So it's nice to see. So it's not nice to see that they didn't replace, Stroman with another Blue Jay because when they replaced the Barrios, they replaced when Barrios would play Jake Odorizzi, you get yourself another Twins pitcher there. But with the Rays thing is they had Brandon Lau and Charlie Morton both make it to begin with, but the fact that they've Austin Meadows at least. It's the Blue Jays with Marcus Stroman not pitching in the All-Star game, and he's the only guy that got voted in, and you replace him with a Yankee. Blue Jays fans should not be happy about that to begin with. That's the replacement for him. Now, the Marlins, if Brian Anderson was playing third base every day, if JT Riddle was playing shortstop every day, then maybe, just maybe, one of them as a position player would make it. But out of pitching staff, Sandy Alcantara, that's fine by me. I'm saying the Dodgers have Buehler and Kershaw. You didn't need both. Okay? The Reds, Suarez is not having an all-star season. Scooter Gennett missed time. And Votto, there's too many candidates at first base for him to automatically get it. Now, see, Puig's not having an all-star season. So, of course, you're going to give it to the best player that's not a position player. That's Luis Castillo. Jacob deGrom made it based on, being one of the better pitchers. I'm not going to say that he didn't deserve it. I'm not going to say he did. And then Will Smith, the Giants, because Buster Posey and Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford and Joe Panic and Evan Longoria, to name some, are not having all-star caliber season and their outfield's a mess. and Madison Bumgarner's not having an all-star season, and none of the starting pitchers are. Will Smith has been their best pitcher the last couple of years. That's when, bing, 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 you take the token player from each team, and that's the guy. The Braves, man, they could have had Ozzie Albies, and they could have had Brian McCann. And but the thing is, they don't have Josh Donaldson, and they don't have Ozzie Albies, Dansby Swanson, or McCann, and they don't have Nick Markakis. But what they do have is the starting center fielder somehow, and the starting first baseman in the All-Star game, and their pitching staff hasn't been that great. Their two best pitchers haven't been that great, so it's fine that they give it to Mike Soroka, but there are probably other teams that going, man, my starting pitcher is probably having a better season than my reliever. On the Pirates, this year, what's happening with the Pirates is they're not having any guys stick out this year except for Josh Bell. So they have their token guy voted in as a reserve, but now he's going to be the DH. Is it Starling Marte and Greg Polanco and Dickerson are injured and not having all-star caliber years? Nor Cervelli, so that's why it's nice to see that Felipe Vasquez got himself voted in as a replacement because he deserves it. Now the Diamondbacks, they got themselves Ketel Marte. All their good players this year have been hurt pretty much, except for Ketel Marte. So it sucks that Zach Greinke won't be able to play, but that's fine. And then when you get down to the Brewers, they originally had themselves Josh Hader voted in because he's having a made season as a reliever. So they just said, we'll replace him with one of the starting pitchers Brandon would have. Not one of the starting pitchers that somebody's ever heard of, like a Gio Gonzalez, Davies, Anderson, or Nelson. We're replacing one of the young players that nobody's ever heard of. So the Brewers got one of their guys replaced with another guy. So that is nice and dandy for them. And they got themselves Mike Moustakas because outside of Christian Yelich and maybe Lorenzo Cain, nobody else on that team this year is having an all-star caliber year. No Aguilar, no Thames, and no Shaw. So they at least get themselves 3, even if one's injured. And then the Padres, Machado's having an all-star year, Hosmer's not, Will Myers is not. I was thinking maybe the way that Framil Reyes and Renfroe are killing the ball, that maybe, just maybe, or the fact that the catching position isn't so deep that, you can make a case for Austin Meadows with JT Realmuto and Grandal and Wilson Contreras, that he may make the all-star team, but nope, they did not. So that's the thing. So that's why, the Padres don't have any good position players that made it this year. Fine, Kirby Yates makes it. That makes sense. It stinks that Pence won't be able to play because he's injured, and the Rays don't have anyone to replace Lau or Morton, but they got themselves Neto, and the Angels still have Mike Trout. So if Listella's not playing, that's not a big deal. And for Barrios, he replaces Buddy Odorizzi, so at least the Twins got another pitcher that way. The fact that the Indians pitcher replaced the Rays, not that great. And the A's got themselves a token reliever even though they have Chapman to replace a Rangers player. And the fact that the Yankee replaced the Blue Jay, I'm not great with that. And Muncy replacing Rendon, fine. They're both slugging infielders. That's fine. Vasquez, the Pirates need another all-star. That means the Diamondbacks only have one. That's fine. The Brewers replaced with a Brewer. That's fine. And Sonny Gray made the all-star team, so the Reds have 2 starting pitchers. That's fine. Because the Nationals have plenty of guys that are on the all-star team. I know that Rendon is injured and Max Scherzer's not playing in the all-star game as well. And none of their other guys this year made the all-star team. But at least if the 2 of them show up, they got 2 guys that are there. So the Nationals want everybody playing the game, so that's one thing they should be upset. And I just think that this year it's going to be very close. Because once Verlander comes out of the game, the American League is going to have a bunch of good pitchers to throw out there. They're going to have Barrios, Garrett Cole, Lucas Giolito, and Tanaka as starting pitchers. And then they got to deal with Chapman throwing gas, closers Green and Han, and Ryan Presley. It's not going to be easy. So I think the American League gets an edge in terms of starting pitchers. Relievers, they can just throw out of the pen. The National League have Will Smith, Felipe Vasquez, and Kirby Yates. Those guys I'm not going to want to face. And Louis Castillo, Sandy Alcantara, and Walker Buehler are nasty. So it's going to be very close. But being the White Sox being my favorite team, I hope the American League wins the All-Star game. And that was Radar for Entertainer and Blog All-Star Edition. Okay, see you next Friday.